In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, Christ is in our midst. In today's gospel reading, we have actually the icon for the gospel reading, which is up in the front here on the wall towards the bottom, and it's St. Peter reaching out for Christ, and the caption on the top of the icon simply says, Lord, save me. Now, when we ask for things in prayer, and we focus on asking for things that are beneficial for our souls, God gives us those things, whatever it might be, whether it's a particular path in life, whether it's a particular person that we encounter. But if we ask prayerfully, and we are careful as well in asking for things that are for our salvation, God brings us those things. It's when we ask for the things that aren't beneficial for our souls that we don't get them. But you see today in the gospel reading that St. Peter got what he asked for. And what did he ask for in today's gospel reading? Well, we hear that Christ lets them go in the boat across the water. Now, you have to think larger bodies of water than just ponds or small areas. But think of something like Lake Michigan, where it's very hard to see across. And Christ lets them go. He comes in the fourth watch of the night, which is about 3 a.m, which for those who wake up in the middle of the night, that's probably when you wake up. It's biblically based time to wake up. It's when we contemplate God the most. And even when the church fathers write that during that fourth watch is when we encounter temptation, we encounter prayer, and it's the time for us to look towards focusing on God. But they're out in the boat all night long. So you have to remember, too, that this gospel reading picks up where the last one, where he fed all the people. And then he sends them away, and he's dismissing the crowd, really, which is where we get that example of what happens on Sunday at the end of church. The priest distributes the bread to the crowd and dismisses the crowd, where Christ did that to those who he fed in the wilderness. But he sends the disciples out, they go, and they encounter this terrible storm. And then Christ comes at about 3 a.m, walking across the water. And as we hear it, St. Peter says, if it is you, bid me to come on the water, to walk across the water. And the if it's you, I've explained this before, last time we heard this gospel, that the if should be since it is you. Actually, the translation is kind of a looser translation, but it's since it is you, have me come to you on the water, which makes a lot more sense, and you can tell from the Greek writing of it, it's not posed as a question, it's posed as a statement. So there's no question mark per se in that question. So, since it is you, have me come on the water. And Christ says, come on. So, St. Peter gets out of the boat, starts walking, he gets what he wants. But what happens? It's not quite calm yet. It's not quite peaceful on the water, and he sees the waves, and he's got Christ right there, and he starts to sink. And then he says, Lord, save me. You can just see it. I mean, this terrible storm. They thought they were going to die in the boat. And he says, Lord, save me. Jesus reaches down, picks him up, takes him into the boat, says, why did you doubt, having this little faith? And then what happens? Everything becomes calm. The whole storm dissipates. He got what he wanted, but something happened in between. And I think that's something that happens in between is the real lesson for us on this day, is that in the midst of the difficulties in life, the storms that we encounter, maybe it's not an actual storm, but the difficulties, whether it's at our jobs, whether it's at home, whether it's with friends or neighbors or whoever, whatever those scenarios are, if we're praying and we're asking God, I know it's you, direct me the right path. You have to step out of the boat. You have to go into the trusting embrace of God and do the things that, in a worldly perspective, are impossible. But calling out to God, we walk across the water of life. We walk in the midst of many snares, as we hear in the hymns of the church, and we do things that are impossible. We do the things that are amazing from a worldly perspective, but very simple to Christ. Christ didn't say to St. Peter, he didn't say, you know what, you got to go pray for 40 days, fast for 40 days, give everything away, be nice to this person, say this. He just says, come on, get out of the boat and come. That's it. No qualifications, no nothing. He didn't say, get out and do your cross and whatever. He just says, come to me. And that's what Christ says to all of us, to come to him. But what happens in the process of getting what we want and what we've asked for in prayer is many times it's terrifying. And the process of getting from point A to point B requires what? Does it require effort? No. Does it require intelligence? No. It requires 100% faith. And that's what happened to St. Peter, is he walked across the water and said, this is scary. Although I'm going to my Lord, the one who will save me, and he's called me to go to him, and yet I'm still scared. And the pressures of life, and I lose focus, and what happens? You sink. We are all on that path from point A to point B. We're all following God's words in certain ways and in certain paths of our life. And the ones that we aren't following, particularly the words of God, we find that we beat our heads against the wall. And we realize it just doesn't work. This isn't working with this scenario. It doesn't work with this person. It doesn't work with this job. It doesn't work with this home, this whatever it is. It doesn't work when we try to go around God to get what we want. But in the process of going to God and asking for the miraculous, which is what St. Peter did, he said, share that with me, which is what we ask God to do with us all the time. Share it with me. Give me some of that grace. Give me some of that miraculous nature. Let me have it. And Christ simply says, come on. And he has it. St. Peter is given that by a word, a single word, not come on, come. Come. He receives that miraculous grace from one word. And he has it, and what happens? Our mind starts to play games with us. You can't really do this. And where's that, you really can't do this come from? We know where it comes from. It comes from the devil. It's that tempting thing. You cannot do what you are doing right now. What God has asked you to do, you are going to fail. You are going to sink. You are going to lose. What you're doing is wrong. And what happens to him? He hears that voice still. And he sinks. And we see that he hears that voice because last week, what did we hear? We heard about the words of Christ saying, I'm going to die, I'm going to suffer, I'm going to do all these things, and I'm going to rise from the dead. And then what does St. Peter say to him then? He says, no, you won't. I won't let it happen. And then what does Christ say to him? Get away from me, Satan. So he still had those little doubts here and there. Even though he confessed Christ to be true, to be God, the Son of God. And even Christ says to him, he says, Peter, you have said that because my Father has revealed that to you. Not because you made it up or whatever, but because God has spoken to you and you feel it in your heart. But even that, feeling it in his heart, knowing that it's Christ, giving up his life, walking on the water, he still has the doubts between here and there, and what happens? He falls. What is the example for all of us? Is we are all walking that path. Some are a little further out of the boat, some are just getting out of the boat, some are almost at the embrace of Christ. But the key is, even to the last minute, we have to keep our eyes focused on Christ and not give up when we know that we are doing the impossible, when we are doing the things that God has called us to do. And even at the last minute, we can make a mistake and we can fail. And that ladder in the back of the church on that icon is the classic example of being, doesn't matter how far you are, right? Even a fireman, right? He could be on the first row or he could be all the way at the top row. Falling off any rung, you're still falling off. So the idea here in the gospel is to realize when you ask for something from God, when you ask, and I know that everybody asks God for different things, whether it's physical, whether it's material, whether it's spiritual, whether it's whatever. We all have a litany of different things that if Christ were standing right in front of us, we could have a checklist of, I want this, I need this, and you've got to do this, and all these things. We ask him for those things. But when he gives them to us, do we doubt? Because if we doubt, we lose it. And that's what happened. St. Peter was walking on the water. He said, let me walk on the water to you. Since it's you, Christ, let me walk to you on the water. And then what happens? He lost it. He lost that gift. He lost that grace that was given to him at that moment to walk across the water, to do the impossible, to do the things that no matter how much we think we know or however close we are to God or whatever, he was doing the miraculous, walking to Christ on the water. And when he doubted, he lost it. So as you think about what God has given you and the path that you're walking on, this miraculous path that has brought you here and will continue to guide you closer to God in the future, do not doubt when you ask for a miracle, when you are in the process of experiencing that miracle. Whether it's praying for someone that you wanted to marry, or praying for being in a particular place in life, or praying to get through something that was difficult, or praying for health for yourself or someone else. Do not doubt as you are going from point A to point B. Now, what's point A for us is right now. What's point B? That's the moment that we close our eyes in this life. So it's with us the whole time. The key is, as we do the amazing, and the amazing, what I mean by that is the miraculous grace of God that he gives us. And as those things come upon us, we have to not focus more on our own strength, but focus more in the eyes of Christ, and especially focusing on our faith. Amen.